Intro. That intro just cracks me up every time I watch my mug on there. It's just funny, funny, funny. Anyway, everybody, welcome to another edition of Drive Time with Matty Ice, and I am back with my special co-host Vic joining us again. Vic, welcome back. How you doing?
Hey, pretty good. How about y'all?
I have no complaints on this lovely Monday. And with that, hey, let's get right into the show, shall we? So, of course, what am I wearing? I'm going with the St. Louis Blues jersey today for a little. We'll save the why for that later on into the show. But today we're going with the St. Louis Blues, and we'll save the why for later. So Vic, you want to share what you're wearing?
Well, it's kind of funny. I got my SpongeBob I woke up like this shirt, which I technically didn't wake up like that. So I woke up with a sneeze from pollen and all that fun stuff.
That's
And then I
right.
got Wolfpack Cat, as you can see. So that's
Yes,
about it.
the good old lovely North Carolina pollen. For those that don't know, everything turns green this time of year in North Carolina from the pine trees in the Raleigh area. It's always a load of fun. That's one thing I definitely do not miss from being in North Carolina. That is for sure. No fun there. So, all right. So, real quick, we'll do a real quick look in the rearview mirror. Well, it's not really going to be quick because we got lots of stuff to talk about. Lots of stuff happened, obviously, over the weekend. We'll get into some of the basketball and stuff as we move forward on it. But I will give Vic, who is my special guest co-host this time, a little bit of time to talk about the NC State new basketball coach. They hired Will Wade from McNeese. Isn't the I think the other guy is the boombox guy, Amir, right? That was his name. He's coming with
Amir.
Villanova. Yeah.
I don't care too much about Amir, but hey, he'll bring some what's the word I'm looking for? Some kaboom
Excitement,
to the
some
yeah,
kaboom,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, what were your thoughts on the hire
I'm more excited
for
about
Will
Will
Sapp?
Wade. So
What are your thoughts on him?
he's a proven winner. He's been there. He's done that. He's gotten more. I can't think of the word. He used it during his press conference. He has kids now, so he kind of had to grow up after that and
Right.
get a little bit better with that kind of stuff. So I'm excited about it. Thinking about getting a couple, maybe a 6-game plan for season tickets. So
Nice.
we'll see. We'll see.
Now, is there any? I remember hearing him in his press conference too. He's talking about those that don't know, the NC State's men's teams, they play their games in Lenovo Center, which is where the Hurricanes play. And he's talking about maybe moving some games in Reynolds where the team used to play, which is on campus, and the women's team play. But I know they shrunk the what it looks like, and they're down. Do you think there's anything there too where they may play a few games there, especially like maybe some of the early non-conference games more at Reynolds to get that college atmosphere that he's looking for, or is that just to make the alumni that are going to be paying the NIL money happy?
I certainly hope they play some games at Reynolds. It's a different atmosphere, but he did ask the fans to show up at Lenovo for the very first game, 19,500, and make it rowdy and show them that the Wolfpack are back. So I'm hoping the fans listen. If I can, I'll be there. Try to be there at least. So that'll be fun. Definitely a lot more excited about Will Wade than I was about Kevin Keats. So
Okay.
we'll
Well,
see.
that's good to hear. Yeah, I mean, I think basketball is better in the triangle when all three teams are doing well. When Duke, UNC, and NC State are doing well, it's a fun atmosphere to be a part of. And I know NC State had a down year, so hopefully they can bring it back. But obviously, the key is going to be, are they willing on spending the NIL money, right?
They're talking about changing up revenue sharing where they'll have more money to spend and between them and football and other sports, baseball. They got obviously women's basketball, which we'll get to in a few minutes, I imagine, where they lost to LSU and LSU ended up losing to UCLA. So
Right.
Kim Mulkey, with
Yes.
her outfits.
Yes, yes, they did. So yeah, well, since you brought it up here, that's a perfect segue there, Vic. So let's get into the women's tournament update, which is so far it's chalk, chalk, and more chalk, and that's gonna ring true when we get to the guys side as well. But the Elite Eight featured three 1 versus 2 matchups, and then a 1 versus 3. UCLA got by LSU 72-65. South Carolina squeaks by Duke 54-50 to punch their tickets into the Final Four. Then our final two games are tonight. We've got Texas battling TCU, and then USC, of course, takes on UConn. So we will see how that all plays out tonight at 6 and 8 o'clock. I'll be honest, I did not get to see too much on the women's or the men's side with traveling to back and forth to DC. So Vic, did you get to see any of the ladies' games? I know you're probably watching your NC State, who unfortunately could not get by LSU, but the other one.
I kept up with them through my phone. I kept going to the scoring app and seeing what was going on. Let's see. Tonight I got Texas beating TCU, but I got it closer than experts think. I think TCU will keep it close. I like that Haley Van Lith, who's a pretty good shooter, and they got some other good scoring on there. So I think it'll be close. And I got UConn over USC. That Juju Watkins ended up getting injured, unfortunately, the last game or so.
Right.
So I think UConn will cover that one pretty good.
Yeah, and UConn's a big favorite too, aren't they? Like a 17-point favorite, something like that, I
Something
think.
like that. Yep.
Which which is
I think
crazy
they
for
might cover that one
with a
with
two
the
going against a
injury.
one. Right. Yeah, I agree. That could be we'll see how those all play out tonight, and then that will set our women's field for sure. So it'll be interesting. I think you I kind of thought that this would go this way as far as the top seeds. I don't think that the top 8 teams were just so strong this year, and that has proven to be the case again on the ladies side, and the one seeds are holding their own right now on the women's side. So anything else on the ladies side before we keep on going?
Um, just that I was a little upset at the state game because I thought they should have beat LSU. They kind of messed it up at the end. The coach went ISO ball when they should have been not. That hasn't been working the whole game really, but hey, it is what it is. It happens. I think Westmore's a fantastic coach, and he's gonna keep doing good things there with Will Wade, and then NC
Right.
State should be on the up and up with both basketball teams.
Yeah, the ladies definitely have got it going there the last few years for sure. So I think you're right. I think they're in a good spot here for sure. All right, so with that, let's get on the men's side where again, if you don't like chalk, too bad because there's more chalk. It's all four number one seeds are your final four teams, and this one the same thing. The men had the same thing. You had 3 1 versus 2, and then you had one big 1 versus 3 matchup. This is only the second time in NCAA history that all four number one seeds make it into the Final Four. Your last time was 2008 when you had Kansas, Memphis, UCLA, and North Carolina make it. So, of course, our Final Four features Auburn, who took down Michigan State 70-64. Florida did get by Texas Tech and was probably the closest game of the four, 84-79. Duke blows out Alabama 85-65, and Houston kind of surprised to me of not that they beat Tennessee, but just how easily they beat Tennessee, winning that one 69-50. So our final four matchups are set for next weekend, where Duke will take on Houston and Auburn will take on Florida. Vic, any thoughts on anything from what you saw?
I've had Duke winning it all the whole time, so I actually thought at the beginning of the year that all four number ones would be in the Final Four, but I didn't pick it in my brackets, so that messed up my brackets. I think I had St. John's in the Final Four for one of them, and well, that didn't go too good. But
No,
I think Duke Houston will be an interesting matchup. Two solid defenses, two pretty good offenses. I think Duke's guarding the 3 point line will put them over the top there. The way they guard the 3 point line and guard all over the court, and the way they switch. But we'll see. I got Duke in that one, and then I got Florida in the other one. One of our old buddies will be happy about that.
they will. Yes, Frank will definitely will approve of the Florida pick for sure. Um, I, that Duke Houston game is going to be interesting. I think that's I do think Duke has definitely played the best, and if they play like they have all tournament, I think that I don't see anybody beating them. If anyone is capable of beating them, I think it's Houston.
Yeah,
But we'll see. I don't that the Auburn Florida will be a good matchup to those two teams met. Then Florida beat them both times, didn't they, in the regular season, if I remember correctly as well?
If I remember correctly, and I think
Yeah,
it's hard to beat a team 3 times, as they say. But
correct.
I like that Broom kid, and Auburn's got some shooters. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. My personal bracket, I took Houston to win, so of course I'm gonna keep rooting for Houston until
And
that time
that
comes.
Walter Clayton kid from Florida, he's a gamer. He's when it gets late, that's he'll put him up and he'll hit him. I think that's impressive stuff there.
Yep, I agree. He's there. It's going to be fun, and you go back and forth on this. And I've got mixed emotions on how chalky the men's side of the bracket was this year, especially with the fact that you just had so much chalk even early on. There just wasn't the Cinderella team to really get behind, and whether or not that's from NIL money and all these the smaller schools just not able to keep up with the big schools. It's 1 year, so I don't want to read too much into it yet. If we start, because last year we still had our NC State made us what they were 11 seed last year, right?
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
we've had Cinderellas recently, so I don't know, is this just one of those weird years where it's just all ones on both, because it could end up being ones on both sides, and if the ladies do it, that's going to be the first time since the field expanded to 64 teams since 2015 for on the ladies side if all four make it there. So, and I looked it up. There's never been a time when all 8 number 1 seeds between the women and men's made it the same year. So this could be the first time for that as well.
What I honestly think will happen is the teams that are lower will actually start catching up. Like you saw Villanova, they hired that Willard. I think they'll start coming back up again, and they'll start putting more money into the basketball as opposed to other sports. So I think NIL will start bringing other things back up, and they'll be more even soon. It might be a couple of years, but that's my gut feeling is what will end up happening.
Yeah, the guys got into that a little bit on yesterday's on the Sunday morning show about NIL money and how look, the NIL money is good. I like it. I think it's these guys and gals should get paid for what they do. The amount of money that these schools make off of these guys, it's good that they're getting paid. I only the transfer portal is fine. I love these kids should be able to move around as just like when their coach moves around. The only thing I hate about both of them is I just don't like the fact that the transfer portals begin before the season is even over
Yeah.
with. Like you got teams still in the tournament that and the portals open up and guys are talking about having to move. Like in my view, neither portal should open up until every team is done playing. Keep it a fair playing field for everybody. That where everyone's got the same opportunities to move. And then I don't care. Go crazy,
Yeah.
move around wherever you want to move to. But the amount of players already moved in basketball is like over 200 some players have already transferred in the portal.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So
I
there we
agree
have
with
it.
all that. Yeah.
Looks like I got a few people. If you're watching, if you got any comments, anything that we are covering, feel free to throw it into the comments section, and we'll put your comments up and discuss it as we move forward on any of these subjects, if anything strikes your fancy. So, with that being said, anything that you want to add on the basketball side?
Just I'm looking forward to the games this upcoming Thursday and weekend. So
Agreed.
that's all.
Hopefully I actually get to see these ones. I did not see much basketball last week with this next subject because we were traveling. We traveled to DC mostly to see the cherry blossoms, and then we ended up getting tickets for the game on Saturday. And it's kind of funny. On my list originally, I had Nats Park like ranked 10th of all the parks I've been to, but after going back again, I moved it up. It's back up to the 7th spot now because I something there, like just seeing there again and being back in the park, I realized that this park is actually a really nice place to see a baseball game. There's not really a bad seat in there. It was a good crowd too with a lot of Philly fans. That place was probably 65-35, but my top 5 is still, PNC Park in Pittsburgh, Camden Yards in Baltimore. I'm putting Fenway at 3, and I've yet to see a game there. Just being in there, the Jake is of course 4, Busch Stadium is 5, Wrigley Field 6, and now Nats Park is 7. So I moved it back ahead of Citizens Bank in Philly, Old Tiger Stadium, and Rogers Center in Toronto. So I moved it back to 7 after my game there yesterday because we had a good time. And I kind of haven't been there in 3 or 4 years, so I think my memory of National Park, wasn't good. But when I went back there, I was like, yeah, this is a pretty nice place to see a ball game. But it does lead me to this next subject, which is dear, you know, This is a special segment. I don't do this often. It's kind of like my chance to get on the soapbox. So we're at the baseball game, and this is nothing against anywhere from Washington Nationals. This happens at you pick your baseball stadium, it happens. You pick your hockey arena, it happens. Um, you go to the game. I go there. I want to see the game. What I don't want to see is the person who is ahead, who's sitting in front of me, get up and down 16 different times in the game. Like, why can't we? What happened to the days of when, like in baseball, if I need to get up to go to somewhere, I wait till a half inning's over, then I get up and I go. If it's during a hockey game, I don't get up in the middle of play. I wait until there's a stoppage in play, then I get up and go. In football, I wait until the team's possession is done. I get up and go. During basketball, you wait till a TV timeout. Like, especially with most of these major sporting events, there's so many media timeouts. There's plenty of time to get up to go during the right time. We had 3 different times. There's a 3-2 count on Bryce Harper, with 2 outs in the inning, big at bat, and guy stands up to ask his little Johnny, do you need a hot dog? Okay, well, what do you want? And he's standing up and like, dude, like, I didn't come here to see your fat head. And then of course, these parents now are teaching these kids that it's okay just to get up anytime you want to go get whatever. And it drives me crazy at these ball games that nobody can A, sit there and watch the game, and B, if they do want to get up, they don't know when to do it anymore. It's very frustrating to me and I hate it. There. All right. I ground my gear. Vic, you got anything you want to add to it? If not, you can just let me be on my soapbox as an old man and, yell at people for getting on my lawn. But I
Old
had to
man
do it.
yelling at clouds.
Yes, that's me. Exactly. I'm yelling at the clouds about this, and it happens like even at at hockey games now, it's like people
Yeah.
are getting up during the middle and it's the middle of a power play and they're getting up. It's like, dude, like, can't you just wait until a whistle blows and then get up and go?
Hey, I get it. I'm getting up there in age too. I want to sit and watch. I don't want to sit and watch a good game. I don't want nobody getting in front of me or nobody talking in front of me. I want to sit there and enjoy the game.
Well, Well, that's why, and my wife and I, we've now decided, like, when we try to find tickets, we actually go for the middle of the row, so that way, because we know we don't get up that much, and then that way too, like, we're like, okay, if we're dead in the middle, there should be no reason for anyone on either side of us to have to go by us to get there. Where I'm also like, okay, nope, sorry, you are not getting through. Sorry, you can go the other way if you want it, if you got somewhere you got to go. But it just drives me crazy. I just hate it. I hate it, hate it, hate it so much. The way that people act at games now, it just is very, very frustrating to me. All right, enough of the soapbox. Let's get to some hockey talk here, shall we? Let me pull up here because we're going to need that here in a little bit here. So I'm going to make that big for when I share it. It's time to drive to the net, and I'm going to start with actually, throughout since the Four Nations happened, I've been mentioning every time on here, anytime, I've seen how the ratings have peaked. Oh, before we get into our hockey stuff here, I do have some comments here. Let's see what Chip said. You finally put on the proper jersey, Matty. Okay, so Chip is a Blues fan, so of course I knew he's going to like the Blues one. He says, I can just see Cranky Vic yelling at people in the arena. Well, yeah, that's true. Yeah,
You've seen it before, Chip. You've seen it before.
yes, yep, yeah. Vic's dad, which is also Vic, does get cranky at times too. He can get cranky in the neighborhood at times too. I remember those days too. So those were some good fun Halloweens when your dad gets cranky. So all right, but anyway, let's drive to the net here. So, since the Four Nations, I've been talking a lot about how the ratings have been affected, and for the most part, it's been good news for hockey. Most of the stuff has seen an uptick. That actually happened to also be the case for the women's national championship game, which is strange because the game only aired on ESPN Plus. If you just had ESPN, ESPNU, you could not get the game. But it went up. They had 22% increase in viewership on ESPN Plus from the year before. So that is a good sign for hockey, and that leads right into what as we get into the playoffs for the NHL. I'm hoping that these good vibes keep getting set. But man, I know a lot of people have talked about the basketball and not having some competitive games. The Frozen Four, the to get a set up there. They delivered in spades and then some. We had 4 different games go to overtime, and college hockey works just like the NHL hockey. If a game goes to overtime, it's 5-on-5 until somebody scores. They play until sudden death goals. So there's no shootouts or anything like that. In the Manchester region, Denver, which is the defending champs, they end up coming out of that region. Boston College first defeated the Cinderella Bentley team 3-1. Denver going out and just blew Providence away 5-1, which is a little bit surprising. So that set up a Denver Boston College rematch. It's the first time since 1989 that we had the 2 teams from the finals the year before play in the tournament the very next year. And just like last year when Denver BC to win the national title. Denver takes out BC again on a 3-1 victory. So Denver so far in the first 2 games has only given up 2 goals in the entire tournament so far, which is just crazy to think of. In the Fargo division, we had a team reach the Final Four for the first time. Western Michigan took double overtime first in the first round to take out Minnesota State 2-1 in a goaltenders classic duel. UMass also won in overtime against Minnesota 5-4. So that led for Western Michigan UMass final, and Western Michigan clinches their first ever Frozen Four appearance. The Broncos, which are not out of the MAC, there is no MAC in hockey, so Western Michigan does play in a conference which also has BG, but then it also features a lot of other teams from up in that northern region in the Minnesota and Michigan area, like Superior State and teams like that are up there. So they advanced to their first Frozen Four ever. And then the Allentown region, which had one of the better games yesterday. Penn State first took out the number 3 seed in Maine 5-1. They just physically dominated them. UConn advanced to their first Elite Eight, if you would, on the Frozen side, taking out Quinnipiac, another recent champion, 4-1, and that led to a great game yesterday between UConn and Penn State. It's a back and forth game. One team would score, the other team ties it. The next team scores, the next team ties it. Goes to overtime with 2 minutes left. Guys coming down on the wing. He does a no-look backhand pass to the center, coming flying down from the blue line and just roofs a shot over the goalie to win the game 3-2 in overtime, sending Penn State to their very first Frozen Four. The Toledo region kind of got thrown all up and down. That side was, the Toledo was probably hoping for a Michigan State, Ohio State final, and neither team won the first game. Cornell beat Michigan State 4-3 with 10 seconds left in regulation. They get a goal to win it, and BU just blew out Ohio State. That was a weird game. Ohio State was only up 1-0 after the first period, and they dominated the first period. They probably should have been up 3-4. And that's one of those classic hockey games where a team has the lead, doesn't put up the goals, and then Ohio State's goalie was just puke after that. And then BU then ends up taking out Cornell 3-2 in overtime. So again, two of the 4 games to decide who goes to the final of the Frozen Four went to overtime. One was a 2-1 game, and so now you've got 2 matchups of teams that have won it against the teams that have not. So you've got Denver going up against Western Michigan, and then we've got BU going up against Penn State. So I know personally, I would love to see a Penn State Western Michigan because I'd love to see 2 teams that haven't won it before. But my gut kind of tells me it's going to be Denver and BU because those are probably realistically the 2 best teams left. But all 4 of these teams could win it. Did you get to check out any of it, Vic, as I ramble on there about it?
Once again, I kept up with some scores on the scoring apps, and I was surprised Boston College lost that Ryan Leonard kid, I know we got some Washington fans who
Yep.
watch the show. Jeff Nail, I know he watches. I'm scared of that Ryan Leonard going to Capitals after, the playoffs, and it's probably going to be a Canes Caps second round matchup. So that's probably when they'll start to get going, get used to the speed, and so we'll see.
It'll be interesting to see with him if he signs now with Washington now that they're done, or not, or if Washington messes with any of that at all, because they could. He's another one of those. I think this was the senior year, so if he wants to sign, he technically could sign with them, and I'd be interested to see if they do or not. Hold on. Oh, hold on. I got breaking news. Jared just said that he actually just signed with the Caps earlier today.
Breaking news.
There you go. So he actually
Thank you, Jared.
So that takes care of that. He is signed, sealed, and delivered to the Washington Capitals for a nice little late season add-on. It will be interesting to see how they throw him into the lineup right away. Sometimes with those guys too, they might throw him in Hershey for a couple days a game. So we'll see how all that plays out. But yeah, I think the college hockey is definitely on the rise. There's a lot of good teams, and it's good to see these teams like the Western Michigans and the UConns that have only really been around in Division I hockey for 10, 12 years. I'm trying to think of a team like, it's kind of the equivalent of how Colorado has turned themselves back around in college football. You get the right players, you get the right people in charge of the program, and you can build a hockey program probably a little bit quicker than some of the other ones. It's just because the talent pool isn't quite what it is for some of the other sports, and now too where these kids from Canada come down and play a little bit easier than with their junior teams, it makes it a little bit easier as well. So it's all good stuff and all on the up and up for everything going on there. And then now what's weird is for hockey, these guys now take a 2 week break. The hockey does not go up head to head against the basketball finals. So the semifinals will be in St. Louis, but they will not start until April 10th.
That's pretty smart, actually.
Yep. There's been just he confirmed what Jared just said too. They signed a developmental deal today. So yeah, so he'll be in Washington if not this year sometime, which it would not surprise me if they throw him in, or they'll do it next year for sure. He'll be there. He'll be there ready to go. All right. So for those Caps fans, it's time for the most important part of the show for them, and that is the OV watch. He did score 2 goals this week, but again, he's been on this for about 4 week stretch of scoring a goal every other game. But overall for the season, he's scoring 0.65 goals a game. So right now he needs 4 to tie, 5 to break the record. The Washington Capitals have 9 games left. Their next game comes up. They got back-to-back games starting tomorrow night. They play Tuesday up in Boston, and then Wednesday they go to Carolina. We'll get into some of those, because Carolina, Washington have a couple matchups coming up next week. We'll save that part for when we get into the standings and the look at the playoffs. But he is, as of right now, he's projected to beat the record in the second to last game of the regular season, which is on the road against the Islanders. Now, how I do these projections is I'm basing that off of his 0.65 goals per game. If he keeps going on this every other game only scoring 1 goal, he will not break it this season. He will tie it, and then we'll have to go into next season because, again, I brought this up last week, but again, the playoff goals do not count. This is a regular season record only. So, Vic, what do you think? Does he break the record?
I do think he breaks the record. I think he's got Boston tomorrow, whose defense is iffy. So I think he'll score maybe a goal or two there, probably a goal, because you know how teams go over to them whenever they're close to records and stuff. So then he's got Chicago in a couple games after the Canes. He always scores against the Canes, as
He
we all
does.
know, as me and you know. Um, and then Chicago. So I think it's coming soon. Maybe
Yeah.
in about 6, 7 games. That'd be my guess.
Yeah, I did see Gretzky said that once he gets to within 3 is when he's going to start traveling with him. So, I think, which I think is probably right. I mean, he needs 4 to tie right now, which don't get me wrong. Can Ovi score 4 goals in a game? Hell yeah, he can. But a 3 seems like the right number to where he's going to start traveling with them. I know even his old line mate Nicholas Backstrom said that he'll start traveling with him too. So it's gonna be must see TV. I think. Let me look here. I think I can pull this up here real quick. I think even between TNT and ESPN, just about every one of his games, the remaining way, is going to be on some type of TV. I did throw up here real quick too. Ben said, talking about Leonard, that he will likely be with the team this week, and that makes sense. I mean, you don't sign a guy to send him probably down to Hershey, so I think he'll at least sit with Washington. How much he'll play? He'll probably get some fourth line, third line minutes, and then see what happens. Right? If things go well for him, then I can definitely see him using him more. Let's see. NHL Network is their game Friday against the Blackhawks. The Capitals Hurricanes game is on TNT. Their Sunday game against the Islanders is on TNT. Their Hurricanes Capitals game on April 10th is on ESPN plus Hulu. Their game against the Blue Jackets on ABC. Their only game left that is not on national TV is the Sunday, April 13th game where they are at home against Columbus for now. And I could see that with that changing where ABC or TNT has the Sunday games. I could see them maybe changing that if it gets to where that could be a game where he ends up breaking it on. But and earlier, which was, I love this announcement, and this is also big because Craig Laughlin was back on the broadcast booth for Washington in their last game. So Joe Benatti, who's been the longtime Caps, I think he's called probably almost every single goal that OV has scored. So they will be doing their feed, which means that that's going to be the guy's voice when he does break it, which is how it should be. I mean, that's, I don't have any problem with the TNT guys or ESPN guys like Sean McDonough. He calls a fine game, but that call needs to be Joe Beninati and Craig Laughlin. I'm glad that he made it back into the studio and into the games with the team. Those are the ones that need to be making that call.
And did you cover Torts being fired last week, or I got my weeks mixed up because
I
my health
no,
reasons.
he got fired on Thursday, so no, I did not bring up the Torts fire. I wasn't gonna, but we can definitely, John Tortorella, the longtime, longtime coach. This was only his second year with Philly. He did get fired from Philly this week. I can't remember the guy's name they brought on an interim basis. To me, it's another one of those I was a little bit surprised because Philly doesn't have a lot of talent. I thought that they'd give him a little bit more time to develop the talent, but I don't know if Torch style works with young NHL talent anymore. I think he needs proven vets to work, and it just wasn't what he had.
Wasn't a good fit.
Nope, agree. But I don't mind the Philadelphia Flyers not being good. The longer that there's enough good teams in the Metro, we don't need the Flyers joining that
Very
mix.
true.
But,
very true.
Speaking of good teams, and this is the jersey that I chose to wear today of the St. Louis Blues. Ladies and gentlemen, the St. Louis Blues are by far the hottest team in the NHL right now. And it's really eerie when you look back at 2019, which is the year the St. Louis Blues won the Stanley Cup, and what that team did to where the St. Louis Blues team is today. It's really kind of scary how similar these things are. So if we flashback to 2019, the All-Star break, the St. Louis Blues are dead in the water. They fire their coach. They hire Craig Berube. They go on one of the greatest heaters of all time. They sneak into the playoffs, the second to last day of the season, and all they did is, oh, by the way, just happened to ride a Jordan Binnington hot streak, along with many other great players. Tarasenko went on a great run then too, and then they win the Stanley Cup, right? So here we are, flash forward to this year. Boston Bruins, it starts with them firing their head coach, Jim Montgomery. St. Louis then immediately says, I can't remember who their coach was then, says, thanks, but no thanks. We're going to go and get Jim Montgomery. And things were going okay, but not, they still were 8 points out at the Four Nations tournament break. But ladies and gentlemen, since the Four Nations break, the St. Louis Blues are 15-2-2, and they are currently on a 9-game winning streak. They were 6 points back of a playoff spot going into the Four Nations break, and now they are. Let me see here at the last number. We'll show these here in a little bit. They are now actually at 87 points, 6 points ahead, and 6 points with basically all these teams now having 8 to 7 games left. It's going to be pretty hard to boot them out. They've actually got a chance to go up and get past Minnesota into the first wild card spot, because they are now actually tied with Minnesota, which I didn't think anyone was going to get anywhere near Minnesota. But they are, Jordan Binnington, he had that amazing final game in the Four Nations tournament, and he's been lights out since then. Robert Thomas is having another strong year for them. He's at 68 points. Jordan Kyrou is at 62 points. Dylan Holloway is their surprise story. I mean, this guy, the first 3 years, didn't do much. He's at 62 points in a breakout season. Yeah, he's kind of like the Portis for the Washington fans. Portis came out of nowhere for them, and he's got almost 30 goals this year. That's kind of what Holloway has done, and I'm going to hope that I know Chip here, who's a huge Blues fan, if he's still on with us, I'm hoping that he'll have some good comments to fill on it. But Vic, have you been catching any of this heater of the St. Louis Blues?
No, sorry, Chip, but I am impressed for sure. Good solid scoring, good defense, good back checking, all the stuff you need to, make a run. So
yep,
we'll
and that's
see.
what and Chip confirmed. I knew they were definitely in the wild card spot, and he's talking about here for Dylan Holloway, they stole him away from Edmonton, which he did. But like I said, in Edmonton,
And
he didn't do much.
Broberg also.
Yeah, he didn't do anything for Edmonton. It's kind of crazy, but then he just catches fire, and this is true. Minnesota loses tonight, they catch many, which is true. And that's a good spot to be in, and we'll go into why because of the team that you avoid at one, if that happens. But definitely want to give a shout out to the St. Louis Blues. They are
And
just
as a
playing some great hockey, and it's fun. I love watching teams like this. I love watching teams that aren't necessarily at the top of the standings make these runs, and then it's always interesting to see, okay, can they go on this run, and can the run continue in the playoffs?
and as a Kings fan, I always have a soft spot for Justin Falk, so I'm glad to
Yes,
see him doing well.
that is true. So, with that being said, here, let's see here if this works out the way that I like it to. I'm going to bring up here our the standing screen here. Sometimes this works for me. Sometimes it takes a while for it to show up, especially since we got all of our mugs on here. But hey, look at that. It popped right up. So, like I said, most teams now are now at 73, 74, 75 games played. So we're actually even less than 9 or 10 games left. It's an 82 game regular season. So most of these teams are at the point where we're going to be, where they've got anywhere from 6 to 8 games left. So we are really getting down to it. The Washington Capitals are the only team with the X by them. They are technically, or no, I'm sorry, down in the West, Winnipeg and Dallas have now also clinched a playoff spot. So in the East, Washington is the only team to officially clinch, but they're in. Carolina is in. The three teams in the Atlantic are all in. Toronto, Tampa Bay, Florida. The Ottawa is in. They are 7 points up on the last spot, but this is where it gets fun still in the East, and this is really the only race that is left as far as for determining playoff position. Right now, as it stands today, Montreal is in because they played one less game than the Rangers, but you see Montreal and the Rangers are tied with 77 points. The Columbus Blue Jackets, they are trying to hang in there. They're at 75 points. I thought last week Detroit was dead, but they've won a couple games and the teams in front of them have lost. And when that happens, you get right back in it. You got the Detroit Red Wings at 74 points and the Islanders at 74 points. Pittsburgh, they played 75 games. They're at 71. That's 6 points behind. There's just way too many teams to make up that type of ground. I'm going to officially declare that any team below Pittsburgh is officially finally dead in the East. But you've got one spot, Vic, for basically 5 teams. Who do you think is that second wild card team?
I want to pick the Rangers, but they've kind of been inconsistent, which all the teams down there have. So we'll see. I don't like the Rangers, but they're my pick.
They're your pick. I want, I still want Columbus to get in. They've not played as well since the Stadium Series, and they've had some rough stretch of games, but they've got some easier games coming up. It's going to be fun with Ottawa getting in. So what these, what they're all fighting for though is of course these matchups. So the way that the NHL does it. Two plays three in each division. So as of right now, Tampa Bay would play Florida. Florida's really fallen on some hard times, mostly because of injuries. They still don't have Kachuk. Brad Marchand just played his first game. They're still without one of their key defenders who was suspended for
Glad.
for Ekblad. So, and honestly, I kind of think Florida's just cruising. I don't really think they're locked in here because Ottawa's still 7 points behind them with both of those teams having 9 to play. So they're kind of locked in at. They're going to finish either second or third. I don't really think Florida cares if they play Tampa Bay or Toronto. I don't really think they care if they get home ice advantage. They just care about getting everybody healthy for when it gets to the push time. And I'm not really that worried about Florida. And we talked earlier. Washington plays Carolina this week for the first game, and then they play again and Washington's on a little bit of a slide too. They've had 3 games where they haven't necessarily played that well, but again, right now they really don't have anything to play for. They're clearly locked into the one spot. They could maybe be playing for a home ice advantage for the whole entire playoffs, but I don't think most teams really care that much about it. They care about going in with everybody healthy, but they play Carolina twice, and Carolina is locked into the 2 spot. With New Jersey's injuries, I'd be shocked if it's not, Washington, Carolina in round 2. So how these two teams go about those 2 games coming up, I think is going to be interesting. And I think, especially by the time they get to that second game, I think it could get a little chippy too between those 2 teams, which is always good fun.
For sure, definitely. I think I agree with everything you said. I got Washington, Carolina in the second round, which would be very nerve wracking
Yep.
for me and Matt and the Capitals fans we have around here. So That would definitely be a good series, and obviously the Battle of Florida is always fun, and
Yes.
so it's going to be
And
some good first round matchups for sure.
if it stays this way, this would also set up an Ottawa-Toronto first round, which would be, you want to talk about Canada going crazy, have Ottawa and Toronto play each other in a series. Or if Montreal stays in it, you still could also have a Toronto-Montreal first round series. And if it's Toronto-Montreal, oh boy, will that be fun. So there could be some real fun in the East coming up. Out West, it's kind of, I really honestly think we're almost at the point where it looks like the 8 teams are really going to be set. I just, St. Louis is now 6 points ahead of Vancouver and Calgary. Calgary is maybe the only team that could sneak in because they've only played 72 games. So they got 3 games in hand. So if they win those 3 games in hand, now they're only a point behind St. Louis. But games in hand are great, but you got to win them. And I don't know, if Calgary can win those games to get up there. But where this is going to be a battle of is the same thing. The Pacific is pretty much set. Vegas is going to be the one. Here's a shocker. LA and Edmonton are going to play again. It's going to be the 4th year in a row that those 2 teams play. Edmonton has won the last 3. Winnipeg is looking to stay in the 1, which means you're going to have a Dallas, Colorado first round matchup, which is going to be really, really crazy good stuff. Do you kind of feel the same way, Vic, on the West, or do you see anything there?
I'm more excited about the Western playoffs than I am the Eastern playoffs. When it comes to the first round, going to be some good matchups there. Obviously you got Colorado, Dallas, which is the Mikko Rantanen, the debacle,
Yep.
and you got Nature's former Kane on Colorado, who I didn't like at first hearing stuff that's coming out of Carolina, but now it's all Rantanen. I don't like Rantanen. Obviously, from the last time I was on this show,
Right.
Rantanen can lose the first round and lose the rest of his career for all I care. I used to like Dallas as a Western team, but that's changed now.
Yeah,
So,
I agree with you. I will not be upset, but I do want to see. And for Colorado, it's going to be interesting how they do. For Winnipeg, it's all about Connor Hellebuck. And he showed in the 4 Nations that he might have it now finally going for. Because in the playoffs he's never been able to put it together. If Connor Hellebuck puts it together for Winnipeg and he plays like the Vezina Trophy, because he's going to probably win the Vezina this year, which is the trophy for the best goaltender. I think Winnipeg could be hard to beat if Connor plays well. What I'm sure all of these teams like Winnipeg is probably even sitting there saying they do not want to see the St. Louis Blues the way they're playing in that first round matchup. So I'm sure they would not be upset if somehow, because Minnesota doesn't really scare me. Edmonton, I just every year Edmonton every year is in the same position. They should just be way better than what they are, and they just cannot put it together. And so Chip had put in the playoffs are going to be fun, which we agree with. And your dad chiming in here. Why are none of the major, and this is pickers, as he clarifies here, but why are none of the major people picking Washington? And I think that's a great question, Vic, because I don't even get it. Like, you look at the betting odds and like, Edmonton is still high up there. Vegas is high up there. You see in the East, you see Toronto high up there, Florida high up there. I just don't think I don't know that people believe that Washington is good, which is a shame because I've seen enough Washington games lately watching Ovi. That team is damn good. They don't have anyone that's going crazy, but they are playing great hockey. And I was not, and if Jeff Nail and I know him and I had a lot of talks. I was not sold on Pierre-Luc Dubois in Washington, but he has been amazing for them. The goaltending has been good. Portis has just come out of nowhere, which is fun. I like stories like that. So I think more people should be. And I'll be honest with you, if we were sitting here today making our NHL hockey predictions, where I do think Washington and Carolina are meeting, I do not have Carolina beating Washington right now. I think Washington is just way too deep of a team, and they play physical and deep teams tend to beat Carolina Hurricanes teams when it comes to playoffs. Just seen us lose to teams like that before. You agree, Vic?
unfortunately,
I know. Agree. All right, let's
but
get some good.
I
Go
think a
ahead.
lot of people's not picking Washington has a lot to do with their defense. Their defense is once you get to the third and fourth, fifth guy, it kind of starts going downhill, which is the same with the Canes, which they got. I won't get into Brent Burns. Matt knows
Right.
enough about my issues with Brent Burns. So,
Yes.
but hey, playoffs once again going to be fun. They always are. I'm looking forward to them. So we'll see what happens in that second round if when it happens.
Agree. I think it is going to
Come
be
to the dark side,
a
Vic.
good. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
trying to get you guys to join. So Joni Evans chiming in, and thank you for coming in here. They are haters, is why she's talking about why are people not picking Washington, and she just wants people to keep sleeping on Washington, which I don't disagree with that either. As a fan of my team, I always love it more when people are not picking my team. I think there's something about when your team is the underdog and you like rooting for them and hoping that they come out and win it, as opposed to when everyone is picking them to win it. It's like there's just too much pressure on that. So I agree with you on that. I think that's a good spot to be in for sure. Chip says Washington chokes too often, which, yeah, I mean, you look, you go back to all those great years when they had, Ovi and them, the fact that they only won Stanley Cup, I think you can make an argument for that. Um, Last year's team, I don't think anyone thought that they were going to beat the Rangers because of how, that team just didn't have anyone. There's just something about this team and this coach. It just seems different. It's a different vibe that I feel in Washington, where I think they could be one of those scary good teams. So before we leave hockey, Vic, you got anything else you want to add on the hockey side before we jump to some baseball?
Or I'd like to add some more because I don't really want to talk about baseball right now, but I don't really have too much to add.
Okay. Joni replies, indeed, exactly. Feels different. I agree. I agree. I always love it when my team are the underdogs. The underdog is the best spot to be. So, all right. So let's get into some baseball. We're gonna first start here with what did she say? Glad I caught a show. I agree. We're also glad that you caught a show, and thanks for joining in. And if you like some baseball talk, that's what we're gonna get into next. So, hey, baseball. We'll start with the weekend, and I do want to bring up, there's been a lot of talk of the Yankees and these torpedo bats, and I'm going to bring up a picture of them here as we get into it here. But in case if you didn't see in the first weekend, one of the big storylines was the Yankees hit 15 home runs in their first 3 games this weekend. So the question, it ties the record set by Detroit in 2006. A lot of this was brought to the attention of these bats that some of the players are using. Not all the Yankee players are using. Aaron Judge hit 3 home runs this weekend with a normal bat. So I want to give a shout out to Sam Blum of the Athletic.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, sure. Any reason to hate the Yankees is always a good reason for me anyway. But shout out to Sam Blum, who wrote this article in the Athletic today on it, and I read the article because I wanted to try to come into here and not just be angry fan, mad at the torpedo bats. But he brought up that the bat is, first we do want to start with, the bat is legal. It is a legal bat to use. It says the bat has to be smooth. It has to have a round stick. It can't be greater than 2.61 inches in diameter at the thickest part, and it can't be any more than 42 inches in length. But basically what they've done is they've made the bat a little bit thicker where the label is. And by doing that, that is where most players actually tend to hit the ball. And so now there is more bat at the area where they seem to hit the ball most, which then, of course, means that some of these guys that are using this bat are hitting balls out of the park, and they're not necessarily guys that are hitting them, that in the past have not necessarily been known. So of course, now that this buzz is starting to hit, this talk is taking out there. So Vic, do you have any? I'll let you add on. While you add on, I'm going to try to bring up this picture here of what these bats look like.
I think it's good for baseball if it keeps happening. More home runs always brings in more ratings. So hey, I think it's good for the game. We'll see if more players and teams start implementing some torpedo bats to see what they can do with them. So we'll see.
Yep, and so the picture did come up, which I'm glad. I'm glad that some of the stuff here I'm actually trying to do works. So the yellow bat is what basically the torpedo bat is. You can see it's definitely thicker here where the label is, and right up in here than what a regular bat would be. And that is what the whole idea is. And this was a guy from MIT basically designed this bat, looking at the fact that the players that he was talking to, when they would usually foul off a pitch or not get the ball well, was because they were hitting it off of this part off the label. Well, now they've got more bat here to hit with. And so that is the kind of the story behind these torpedo bats. So at first I was kind of like a little bit more, along the lines of course, the Yankees are figuring out a way to cheat, but that's why I wanted to read this article. And I was glad I did before coming to the store because into the show today, because it gave me a little bit of a better view of the bat. And, I think you're going to see just that. More people are now going to be trying out these bats. And look, baseball hitters are superstitious. If they got a bat and they start that first weekend and they hit 3 home runs with it, guess what bat they're using the rest of the year, right? I mean, I think, we talk about hockey players are very superstitious. Baseball players might even be more superstitious with that.
For sure. Agreed. I got nothing, not much to add.
Well, your dad said cheaters will always be cheaters. Well, I feel that way about the Houston Astros and trash cans. So, the Houston Trastros, I still boo Jose Altuve every time he comes up to bat in Cleveland. So I hear you on that one. He also has first KC with Pine Tar, now Yankees with the torpedo. But again, from looking at this, it's not just them. There's a few other teams that actually have guys that are using these torpedo bats. So it's not just the Yankees only. There's I think it was the Cubs. The Cubs got a couple guys that are using them. There's a couple guys in Boston that are using them. So they and Ben adds, I heard the fix the bat to match your swing path, kind of like getting fit for golf clubs. Yeah, that's kind of the way that I read this. It kind of made sense to me where it kind of seems that way now. I suck at golfing and I can't hit a baseball either, so it probably wouldn't help for me on either side of it. But that's kind of what it seems like here for what these bats can do.
Hey, it's crazy what science can do, and what you figure out, like bat path, and what is the other analytical stuff, and
Yep.
where the ball hits the bat, and how a batter swings, and all that fun stuff.
Agree. All right, so let's a real quick look at the weekend that was. The Yankees sweep Milwaukee and to go 3-0. The Dodgers sweep Detroit after sweeping Chicago in their couple games. So here's a shocker: the LA Dodgers are 5-0 to start the season. Oh my God, who would have thought that was going to
Mhm.
happen? San Diego surprisingly sweeps Atlanta. That one kind of did catch me by surprise. Not, I know San Diego should be good this year, but I really. And look, this is the first weekend, so I'm not a big believer in bringing too much out of the first weekend, but that was a sweep. And then another sweep from this weekend was St. Louis taking out the Twins in their 3 games. So those are your teams that are left that are undefeated: the Yankees, the Dodgers, San Diego, and St. Louis. Anything from this first weekend that you saw, Vic?
I don't want to talk about the Braves, and I also have a soft spot for the Red Sox. I don't want to talk about them either. So
Yeah.
I'll let you go. I'll let you cover it. So
Okay, let's see here. We do have a comment in here still here. So let's see. Pitchers are in the lab all the time. It's legal to bat, so it's a good thing. Yeah, I agree. I kind of feel that way too. I think it is a good thing of where they're going with that. So also here real quick on a weekend, there were some strong starts. Willer Abreu in Boston, Manuel Margot in Detroit, Aaron Judge of course in New York, Keibert Ruiz in DC, who I got to see on Saturday crush a ball out of the ballpark, and Stephen Kwan for Cleveland, all batting over 500 to start the year, which granted it's 3-4 games in. So, these batting averages are going to be
what
huge.
about that kid from Cleveland, Kyle Manzardo?
That
Oh,
we're gonna get to him later. Don't you worry. I got a whole thing for Kyle Manzardo. Don't you worry. Yeah, he had a great weekend too. Eugenio Suarez for Arizona and Aaron Judge are leading the league right now with 4 homers each. Aaron Judge has 11 RBI. Suarez for Arizona, Kyle Tucker and Miguel Amaya, both from the Cubs, have 7. Mackenzie Gore had a great first game on Thursday for the Nats. He struck out 13 in 6 innings, didn't give up any runs. The bad news is then they had to go to the Washington bullpen, which is just awful, and that we're not good. Then Jesus Luzardo for the Phillies turned it back around on Saturday against the Nats and struck out 11 in 5 innings on the pitching side. So those are just a few of my little highlights from the weekend, that I had in there. See, Vic asks, when is my first Cleveland game? It will be not this coming Friday, but the Friday after that. We're not going to the home opener for the second year in a row because Jared had to work and it's a 4 o'clock start, and it's just a weird start time, which I'm actually now happy about because the weather forecast for next Tuesday for the home opener is 34 degrees. So I'm not too upset that we're going to miss that one. The Friday game right now is the temps are supposed to be in the 50s. So I'm happy about that for the first one. So with that being said, we're going to get into some baseball predictions. We're going to go through here division by division. We'll give our division winners, then we'll give some wild card teams and some playoff predictions here real quick. So NL East, Vic, who do you got?
Well, I did have the Braves before this weekend, but they kind of downed on me now with their bullpen and same issues as last year. I know it's early, but early gets early or late early or whatever that saying is.
Right.
But I,
So
for my Philly
you,
fans that might watch this, you'll be happy with this one. And I keep it off the sports page. I got the Phillies.
well, even without seeing, like I said, I really try not to. I did not use what happened in the first 4 games because it's just it's one series against one team. You just never know how that's all going to play out. But I actually agree with you. My pick for the NL East was Philly, and I was sitting there watching them play Saturday, and they didn't have Kyle Tucker in the lineup, and you just look at that lineup, and it's like, damn, this lineup is loaded. I mean, that lineup in Philly is just loaded,
And I
and more loaded.
I wait a little bit
So
for the Braves to get healthy. They're still missing Strider, and they'll be getting Acuna back and Sean
right.
Murphy. So
Yeah,
we'll see
that
what
helps.
happens after that.
Atlanta has to get healthy, and I think they'll, to preview here, I think they'll get into where the wild card spots are. So that brings us up to the NL Central. Vic, what do you got in the Central?
That's a tough one. What do you think? I'll follow you on
Well,
that
here's
one.
what Chip
Cardinals.
thinks. He's got the Cardinals, which, I think of all the divisions, the NL Central, could maybe be the weakest, but it's also the most up for grabs because if you wanted to make an argument for Cincinnati with Tito coming in and winning it, if you want to make an argument for Pittsburgh with their pitching coming in and winning it, I could hear you. If you want to say that you think Milwaukee, even though they didn't have a great weekend against New York, has a chance to win it, I could take that. But I honestly think I like St. Louis. I think St. Louis Cardinals of all the teams are the most complete. They made some good additions. That's my pick for the NL Central is St. Louis. And Gertie agrees, right? Say yes, I agree. Yes,
Looks
I
like
agree.
she agrees. Yep.
Yes. All right.
And yeah, I like the Cardinals. I think they got a solid team this year, top to bottom. I think they get some health issues sometimes. So that's the issue with them is they always get some guys hurt. So hopefully they stay healthy this year. If so, I like that pick.
Yeah, he's now Chip's trying to play it off, saying it's his homer pick, but it's okay. You can be a homer with St. Louis. And like I said, that division I definitely think is the one that's up for grabs. Pittsburgh is kind of a team I'd love to see, and I do think look, Tito is dear to my heart with Cincy, and if he can right that ship, I do think Cincy's got a chance. But we'll see what happens. Now the NLS, let's just get it over with. Who's going to win the NLS? 3, 2, 1. The
Dodgers.
Dodgers, right? So I don't know how anyone's going to predict anything different than that. So that's our 3. So we got the winners now. How about your wild card teams? Who are your 3 teams that you think get in besides for the division winners?
I got Braves, Padres. Think about this third one. That's always a toss up. I don't know. Throw a team out there, and I'll probably agree with you.
I've got the Mets, so it's kind of weird.
Yeah,
Like
that makes sense. Yeah,
we did not plan this out as far as having our teams match. But yeah, I've got Atlanta. I think Atlanta will get healthy enough to get in. I've got San Diego, still holding on, and I think the Mets, with that pitching, will be fine. And Frankie Lindor, had a breakout towards the end of the season. So those are my 3 wild card teams. I got the Mets, Atlanta, and San Diego.
I could see maybe the Giants sneaking in or another NL West team after the Dodgers and Padres, but we'll see.
Yep.
Diamondbacks maybe.
Yeah, I think I thought about them for the wild card, but I'm not totally sold yet on them. So we'll see. Vic says no team matters than the Dodgers. I probably end up as we move along, Vic.
According to
that I probably
ESPN,
don't
yeah.
agree with that. Chip says, "God, drop off for practice." Good show, boys. Thanks, Chip. Appreciate
Take it
you
easy,
jumping in. I'm
Chip.
glad
Thank
you
you.
enjoyed it. And then he also says they can win. Talking about the Cardinals, they can win it, but a lot will need to go right to take the division. And he's probably true on that. But that's a good thing about being in a division that is up for grabs. So that is our NL, kind of review of where we're at. Now let me pull up here. So we're going to start with the AL East here. Who do you got in the AL East? I know you're a closet Boston Red Sox fan. Do you think they got enough?
I got the Yankees. I think their offense is too strong, and they got some solid pitching there. Yeah, they got Rodon, even without Garrett Cole. They got
Right.
Rodon. They got Stroman, I think, is there now.
Yep.
A couple other solid pitching. So I think unfortunately they'll take it between them and Baltimore.
Okay. Well, that's the team that you just mentioned is the team I've got in the AL East. I think Baltimore wins that, and I think these two you just flip flop. Like I've got Baltimore winning the division, the Yankees in the wild card spot. But I can't argue with anyone that goes Yankees and Baltimore in. But I do think both of those teams get in. My one sneaky pick team for the East, even though they did not have a good weekend, Baltimore killed them this weekend, is Toronto. They've got a loaded lineup. I'm concerned about will they have the pitching to get them in there. But and then too, there's the whole Vlad Guerrero Jr. contract thing. If they don't get that figured out, then do they end up trading him if things go south quickly? But they got some bats in Toronto, and I kind of like that team. So they're kind of my hope pick. But we will see where that goes. Vic Ads should be a good division. Yeah, I agree. The AL East, I think, is probably the toughest division between Boston, and Boston's one of those teams I think could maybe get in. I just didn't feel comfortable enough to pick them to get in yet. But if they got in, it wouldn't surprise me because I think Boston made some nice ads too.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm skipping now. I'm going to the AL West because I got to save the AL Central for a certain reason later. But who you got in the AL West?
I didn't really study this too much. I should have wrote it on my sticky notes, but I didn't.
Jeez, what's good having sticky notes? I'll buy you some time. I got Seattle. I think that they take over Houston. I'm not. I think this might be the first year for Houston where maybe they finally start to have to decide if they're going to go full rebuild or not. Their vets are getting a little bit older. I like Seattle. I think they've got good pitching, and I think they got the bats to match. In an open AL West like Texas, I think could be up there again too.
Yeah, I like Texas. I think they made some good moves to overcome their pitching this year. I think I'll go with Texas in that division.
And they also, Texas had a lot of injuries last year too, so that kind of derailed them from that magical run the year before. So okay, I can accept that. So that leaves us here with the AL Central. Vic, you want to go first so I can save my fun?
I like Cleveland. I like your Indians. That's a pretty tough division. Also, you got Cleveland. You got
Detroit should be good. Kansas City.
Yeah.
Minnesota. The Minnesota Twins remind me of the Edmonton Oilers in hockey. Both of those teams, they on paper, you look at the Minnesota Twins, and every year they should be really, really good. And I know my reason as to why I think the Minnesota Twins are not that good is going to come up in a later segment. So I'm going to save that for a little bit here. But look, I'm a Guards fan. This is a troll the 100% homer pick, but the Guardians made it to the AL Central last year. They went to they win the AL Central, kind of surprising everybody last year. They make it to the ALCS. They give the Yankees everything that they could handle, just didn't have enough pitching arms to really make it, to give them a full on series. But they made some moves and they're young. They got younger. They did trade away Josh Naylor, but the reason why they traded away Josh Naylor is a player that you mentioned earlier, Kyle Manzardo, who is going to have a breakout year for them. He's going to get to play every day. He's going to get to play against righties and lefties, and he showed in that first series that he can mash against lefties and righties both. And they did trade away Andres Jimenez, who is no doubt one of the best defensive second basemen in the game right now. But they got Travis Bazanza coming up. He's not with the team to start the year. I don't think it's going to be that long before he gets there. So you make a move like that because you got your number one overall pick who you took last year, and you got to make room for him. So they get a pitcher. They trade away and they get Luis Ortiz. And I don't know if it's possible, but the Guards bullpen in theory and paper actually got stronger than what was the best bullpen in the league last year, and they got good starters.
Bullpen definitely matters. That's for sure.
Yeah,
And
Because go
do
ahead.
you, Bieber, is he still in the Cleveland? I know he's supposed to come back some
He's with
point.
Yeah, he's with Cleveland, but he's not going to probably pitch until July or August. And they
Okay.
also picked up Means from Baltimore, who's same thing. So they got, two guys that if the starting pitching does fade at all, they got two guys that will be able to bring in later in the season. But the bottom line for the guards is this: you get to the seventh inning and you have the lead where you can bring in Cade Smith, Hunter Gaddis, and then Clase, assuming Class A works out the jitters from what happened in October, because October was not good to Emmanuel Class A, but they put him in spots that they hadn't put him in all year. So we'll see what happens there. But that's my pick, and yes, it's a homer pick all the way. How about the wild card teams in the AL? Who do you got?
Well, we go back to the AL East and a bunch of good teams in that division. So whoever loses, they might even get two from that division in Baltimore, maybe Toronto, maybe Boston. You just never know. And um, from the Cleveland or Seattle's, both good teams. And so gonna be interesting baseball. I think there's a lot of good teams this year, and that can make different noise. Usually, it's one, two teams each division, but now you got multiple in multiple divisions that could make some noise.
Agree. I got for my wild card teams, I got Detroit. I actually got two coming out of Central again, just like last year, which kind of surprised people. But I think the Central's got a lot of sneaky good teams. I got Detroit because I think they showed. I think Detroit's, even though they got swept by the Dodgers, which there's no shame in getting swept by the Dodgers, but they got the pitching. And I think that team that showed up after the All-Star break is going to be the team that comes to play, day in and day out. KC's got some good arms, and of course they got Bobby Witt Jr., who I just love watching that kid hit. And they've added some bats to go around him. And then I do have the Yankees win it, but I think two teams come out of the Central. But it wouldn't surprise me if Detroit does fall back, to like kind of a more mediocre team. Then my next team in would be Boston. I think then two teams come out of the East, and that wouldn't surprise me at all. All right,
So
so
I got the Yankees or Baltimore, whichever one doesn't win the East. Um, and like I said, so we got opposite on that one for sure.
that's okay. That's what we're supposed to have. We're supposed to have. We can't always agree on everything. That's no fun. So who
Why
do you got
not?
ultimately? Who's your? Let's go with what's your World Series prediction?
Dodgers and I don't know. I like Baltimore this year. I think they got some solid pitching and solid hitting. I think you know my grandpa was a huge Baltimore fan, so and I got a couple family members that are Baltimore fans, and
Yes.
yeah.
So Vic asked if he got in late. Yes, we did. The NCAA tournament was first. That was like our first little segment that we did, Vic. So yeah. So there was some NCAA tournament talk. So yeah. And without planning this, we've got I kind of had the same thing. I actually like I will pick unfortunately the Dodgers to win. They are the new evil empire. But with the money they have spent on that lineup, and that lineup is just loaded. Like there's no soft spot. There's nobody to bat around in that lineup. And then you had oh yeah, they got probably four of the best starting pitchers in the game, and they got arguably the best closer in the game right now. Like there's no weakness on that. The only thing that could derail the Dodgers is injury, and so if they don't have the injuries, they're going to be really really tough to beat. I agree. I think it's the Dodgers and a battle for second, unfortunately.
And I had the Yankees playing the Dodgers before the Garrett Cole injury, but unfortunately the Garrett Cole injury happened, so I don't have the
Yeah.
Yankees there anymore. So we'll see.
Yeah, I'd love to see Cleveland get there. I just don't. I still think that they're a year or two away from being where they want to be as far as the optimal team to go about that. But look, I mean, Cleveland does this every year. They are every they build on young guys, and then they try to ride those young guys, and then they trade them before those contracts get up. Which they just re-signed Tanner Bybee to nice deal, which I like that. So Cleveland could maybe be my surprise team if they can stay healthy, and if they get enough, if these bats can continue to support Jose, because Jose Ramirez is still, in my view, one of the most underrated players in baseball. He's also the most fun to watch. I just love watching that. The fact I get to watch Jose Ramirez play more games than not is just fun. So Vic, you got any players to watch? Or who are players that you want to see do well? They can be either young players or they can be vet guys. Who are guys that you want to see do well?
Well, as we've been talking about, that Manzardo from Cleveland, and I like him a lot. I recently just picked him up on my fantasy team because they've been terrible so far. My fantasy team hit like 124 the first week, which is not
Not
good.
good. No, 124
Um,
does not win you many games.
I actually had thought I actually like my team to start with, but then they hit 124. I'm like, what's happening? But fantasy for another day. But I like Manzardo. Unfortunately, the new Dodgers pitcher they picked up in the offseason from Japan. Um,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
Yamamoto, right?
him.
Yeah.
Yeah, Yamamoto. That's two I can think of. Some veterans. You got Devers, who's been struggling so far. I thought he would have a breakout season, but he's been struggling up in Boston.
Uh, can you recap any discussion on transfer portal and top NCAA teams next year? We didn't really go into top NCAA teams for next year, Vic, but we did comment on the transfer portal that it should not
And we
open
commented on
until.
state.
Yeah. Vic gave his thoughts on your new NC State coach, and we both are in agreement that transfer portal should not open up until the season ends because like of how many players have already transferred, and that's just silly. If you watch the show from yesterday, the Sunday Morning Rise that the guys did, they had a really good segment on the state kind of college basketball that, and you can see all their shows going back. As well. Those are the main guys that do the three main shows, but that's a good spot to get some information on as far as for where they're at on that. So we'll finish this up here. First manager fired. I got my pick of who I think is going to be the first manager fired. Do you know who? Do you have one, Victor? Do you want
First
me to go?
manager fired.
This is the team that I mentioned as to why people wonder why is Minnesota not that good, and I believe it is 100% because of Rocco Baladelli. I think he's going to be the first manager fired because I'm honestly surprised they didn't fire him during this offseason. They started off getting swept by St. Louis, and then you're off to a really slow start when you are getting pounced by the White Sox, and the White Sox beat Minnesota today 9-0. So my pick for first manager to go is going to be Rocco Baladelli from Minnesota. I think if they continue to this slow start with a team that has high expectations, I think he's going to go.
I've been talking a lot about this with some buddies. I've been talking about Snicker in Atlanta. If they keep struggling, especially after they get healthy, I could see him possibly,
Yeah.
Getting fired because it's the same issues as they had last year. The bullpen, the hitting with runners in scoring position. That's how they lost 4 games. The first 4 games is those same issues coming back up to start the season. You can't do that. You can't have the same issues over and over again. And so if that keeps happening, I could see possibly Snicker
Agree.
being fired.
Yeah, that's a good call too. If Atlanta, because Atlanta's got another team with it's always those teams that have high expectations that get off to these slow starts where you've got the likelihood of a manager getting fired. So we'll see. I think those are good ones. I did skip around. I did have some players I wanted to mention too. Lawrence Butler in Oakland. Well, not. I'm sorry. It's no longer the Oakland A's. That's right. It's just the Athletics. Wherever the hell the A's are playing, Sacramento, whatever you want to call him. He's a good young player to watch. Pete Crow Armstrong for the Cubs, I think, is another young kid to watch. James, the Nats have a lot of young talent. I think the Nats, they're in a tough division. Give the Nats 2 or 3 years to let some of these young arms and these young players like James Wood and Dylan Cruz get their at bats in this year and take maybe some lumps. But man, I think the Nats have a really strong potential here. Junior Caminero in Tampa Bay is another player I think that you're going to see have a strong year. And then, yeah, I've talked about Kyle Manzardo for Cleveland. He's going to get an opportunity to play every day. And with that,
And
I think
I have a surprise team, the
what's that?
Marlins.
The
The
Marlins?
Marlins.
Really? Why do you think? Because I honestly think they're going to be last in that division. Why do you think that
They
Miami
could be,
could be?
but I think they could win 80, 85 games. They got some good young. They got Alcantara. They got some other young pitching. They got some young hitters. I think they're just going to be surprised if they'll win more games than the projections.
Okay. Well, I like that. We'll see. We'll see how that holds true throughout the season. So, so now it's time to look down the road here, and man, we've got a great week of sports coming up here. You got the Final Four, of course, next weekend. With that coming up on, we got what Saturday will be the semis, and then Monday is the final. You got a full week of baseball. We didn't even talk NBA today because there's just so much other stuff, and with the baseball predictions, I wanted to get those into a show while the season is really young. We haven't even talked the NBA. They're winding down too. They're down to 7 to what I think most teams have 8 to 12 games left on the NBA side. So you got that winding down where playoff spots are going to be starting to come up. Of course, we're going to have the NHL, and you got another week. You got a big week for Ovi. He's got 3 games this week. We'll see how that goes for him. Anything this week that you're looking forward to watching, Vic?
Like I said earlier, the basketball. Obviously you got bunches of hockey. Them coming down to the wire, the playoff races. I'm not. I like NBA when it gets to this point, and when it gets closer to the playoffs, I'll start tuning in to some NBA, seeing what's going on over there. So it's fun. It's fun sports times. You got baseball obviously started up. So it's fun for sports, and I actually had a fight in the NBA the other night. I was like,
All that was great. The coaches and everything got ejected. It's like, all right, the hockey game broke out, the basketball game.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So,
Hell, we got the Masters start here. Is that no? That's next weekend. Next weekend is
yeah, yeah,
right.
yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
even for any golf fans out there, there's that the Masters is always a good one too. So, well, I think it looks like we're here at the exit ramp. Vic, anything you want to add on to before we bid adieu?
Just take care of yourself, take care of your health, take care of your mental health. I've I've been struggling with my health since I was young. Matt knows, my family knows, people around me know. Life can be difficult. Take care of yourself. Be there for others. Be kind. All that good stuff.
I can't say that any better, Vic. So I'm definitely good words to live by, and I think that plays always well right into how I end the show, which is make sure you hug your loved ones, tell them that you love them, because tomorrow is not guaranteed. The only thing, hopefully, if we're all here next week, we will do this again. And Vic, as always, appreciate you coming on
Yeah, yeah,
and joining us here. And Joni adds, well said, Vic, and I agree 100%. We got to take care of ourselves, especially with what's going on in this world right now. There's just too much, and that's why I love doing this show, because this show, I always look at this show has an hour break away from, well, in this case, even an hour, 15 minutes. We ran a little long today, which I don't mind. It was a good show today. I like trying to use the show as a break from what's going on out there, and just to talk sports. So, Joni, appreciate you jumping on. It's good to see some
yeah.
new names on here jumping in to join us. And so, Drive Time is here, of course. We're on every Monday from 5 to 6. There's lots of great other shows here on the Sideline Junkies Network. If you haven't checked them out yet, the main guys, which gave me this opportunity, the Boss Man BJ, Midnight Rider, and KG, and the Gentleman Jack, they are on Sundays, and usually they start around 11:15 in the morning for the Sunday Rise. Then they got the Tuesday Night Flight on Tuesdays, which is usually they start that around, they say 7:45, but they more start around 8 o'clock at night. And then you have on Thursday night the Thursday Night Throwdown, which is usually 7:30 to 8 o'clock start time. And then the Gentleman Jack does a great interview show on Wednesdays, which is called The Passenger Seat with the Gentleman Jack. So lots of good opportunities on here to talk sports, and and the best part is, what I love is with these comment sections, you can be part of the show. Throw in your comments as you see. I will read them off. And Vic, you got an open invitation to join me anytime you want on any Monday you want to join
Appreciate
in.
it. I appreciate it.
You're welcome to join in. It's better to have somebody else to go back and forth from, and allow me to occasionally get a sip from my
Yeah, yeah,
pop, as opposed to me rambling on myself for an hour every day.
yeah. I appreciate you inviting me. Fun times. Me and you have been talking sports for years now, so it's
I know.
always a fun time. So
And now look at us, we're doing it on a podcast. Who would ever thunk it?
who would have thunk it? We've known each other for years,
boy,
15,
yeah,
16, 17, something like that. I
that's
can't
gonna
even keep up now.
it's 21 because remember we moved in
21.
When Sarah moved into when we moved in there before Sarah's first birthday. So
That's right. Yep.
we're
Yep.
all there on Lockberry Court together,
Yep.
20 plus years ago now. So
Lots of
crazy.
shenanigans.
Yeah, oh, tons of shenanigans. So, well, it's skindling, lots of skindling
Kindling.
going on. That's right.
Kindling.
All right. Well, one last comment, then we'll hit the road here. So, usually at the tailgate. Well, yeah, we've done a lot of tailgating together over the
We need
years.
to do some more.
Yeah, Jared and I were talking about because we didn't come down at all this year for Kane's game. We'll see what the playoff schedule looks like if there's a weekend game that fits, but we'll have to see. Like the last 3 years, it's either we've either had
Yeah.
family in town or they will do something else. So we'll see. But all right, that's good enough. Well, time to say adios. So with that being said, Vic, thanks for joining in. Everyone, thanks for joining in to
Yeah.
Drive
Thank you.
Time. We'll see you guys next week.